We know the problem, but what is the solution? Britain is broken. So more than 2/3 of Brits believe we are scuppered up the creek without anything that even resembles a paddle, royally stuffed with no current solution to our woes. 2/3 of us believe this. The country is heading in the wrong direction. And as I mentioned at the beginning, you won't be surprised to know the key areas of real concern here are the NHS, immigration and the economy. All of those things, you could have written it yourself the day before these results came out. We're not asking for a lot. We're asking for a little bit of a return on the money that we pay in. And we pay in an extraordinary amount of cash. We are taxed out of our own socks on a continual annual basis. That tax intake to the government goes up in one way or another. Oh, it won't be income tax or national insurance. There's loads of other ways, Rach, that you can tax us, and they don't miss a chance. And you know what? All of that would be kind of half fine if you saw a return on your investment. If you said, well, yeah, we are taxed a lot, but, you know, look at the roads, look at the NHS, look at schools, look at immigration. Oh, brilliant. So, yeah, we pay a lot of tax, but look at what we get. We don't get any of that. It's a miserable, declining picture out there. And politicians, I mean, for years they have failed on this one. For years. And whilst I think this particular government has a bit of a PhD in mumbo-jumbo, flannel juice and gibberish, the other governments before them don't get away scot-free on this either. Not reading the room, not understanding where there is anger. It's all reasonable stuff. And if you ask Joe on the street, they will concur. Yeah, NHS, the economy, immigration, sort it out. It won't therefore surprise you to know that Reform UK looks set to hoover up a jaw-dropping amount of council seats in the local elections in May. Now, this polling took place over a number of regions. We're talking about the Northwest, the Northeast, Yorkshire, East Midlands and the West Midlands. And this is the crucial bit. This is the really key bit. We've been crunching the numbers at this end. These are the areas where in the last general election last year, Labour reclaimed scores of those seats that they'd lost to the Tories in 2019. So around and round it goes again. I mean, I think most of us could have told you that, you know, if a vote in that direction may well be something you live to regret. Others will say, because there's a third of people that are quite happy, by the way, with how the country is being run. They're totally fine with it. So 9 months on, from July the 4th, it seems voters are not happy, and the poll suggests the government retaining fewer than 3 in 4 of their 2024 voters. A lot has happened since last July. Reform's support since the last election has soared from 18% to a whopping 30%. I mean, this is huge. This is a political party that's been around for about 5 minutes. At the same time, Labour's vote share has plummeted from 39 to 27. They were also asked in this poll who would make the best Prime Minister. And Nigel Farage tops the list. Keir Starmer second. Kemi Badenoch comes in on third. So even the leader, the official leader of the opposition, or the leader of the official opposition, cannot score a goal, an open goal, against the current government. And the news gets better, of course, for Nigel Farage's party. Reform also holds a 6-point lead over Labour in terms of which party represents real change. And again, remember, in 2024, Keir Starmer's Labour promised to represent real change. And when that question was asked in those constituencies, in those areas and regions, the answer that came back was that Reform offer the best opportunity. The Reform leader leads Sir Keir by 18 points on who can fix immigration, by 15 points on who would take radical decisions, and on 10 points on who would be best to stand up for Britain. He's also got a 9-point lead on Starmer as to who is the stronger leader. 35% to Keir Starmer's 26%. So there's really 2 obvious questions that come from all of this. The first, as I mentioned, how do we repair broken Britain? 2/3 of the country think it's knackered out there. And you really haven't got to speak to many people. And I'm not even talking about people who are politically engaged. You know, here on Talk, our audience is invariably politically engaged. That's what we do here, not just on this show, but on all the other shows. When you phone in or email or message in, it's because you are engaged in this kind of stuff. But if you just talk to people who aren't necessarily animated ordinarily about politics and what goes on, I think they will tell you the same story. NHS, the economy, immigration. It really isn't that hard to work out. And yet, time and time again, our politicians, and you know what it is? It's the calibre of our politicians. I think I've mentioned this every day for about 6 months. The way our politicians communicate, the pre-prepared press releases that come from some spad in their office who've written something nice and clinical. Well, I'm going to meet with Mr. Macron and raise the issue of immigrants. No, no, no. When have you heard real outrage on Channel migration crossings from either Keir Starmer or Yvette Cooper? When have you heard them genuinely put it on the line that they're fed up to the back teeth when they say what you're thinking? Remember the Trump came out with that line in one of the many hustings before the last American election. He simply said, I'm saying what you're thinking. Now, I know some people will say there's a bit of Del Boy about that. Maybe there is. But that's as near as it gets. I'm saying what you're thinking. 0344 499 1000. Number one, how do we repair broken Britain? That is the foremost question on this, because 2/3 of us think we are absolutely knackered and scuppered. We'll chat to Joe Twyman, the pollster, as well in just a little bit, who will shine some light on the finer detail of this set of polls and questions. But in terms of how we solve it and who would solve it, who would be the individual or the thinking behind how we get to that stage of solution. Does it take cross-party support on something? We've too often seen this sort of two-party Tory-Labour thing delivering frighteningly similar results from frighteningly similar kinds of people. And that, I think, is also what is wrong with the system. 0344 499 1000. How do we repair broken Britain? Our lines are open. Let's get a word on this and the other big stories of the day. And there's a lot out there today, kids. Steve N. Allen, the comedian and broadcaster, is back with us. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing all right, Mr. Sunshine. Look at you bringing the joy.
Hey, I'm full of it today, aren't I? It's like it's Christmas around here. Goodness me. This is, of course, the story that, we have a genuine issue surrounding what is going on in terms of our country, how it's run. There's a lot of fatigue. There's a lot of malaise. It's broken, Steve.
Yeah, normally on these stories, all you need to do is do a quick Google to prove it wrong, because it's so easy to say things are bad now and they were better in the past, and you can find some stuff that disproves that. At the moment, we're going through one where you can't, because it is true. We're being taxed more. It is true that the chickens are coming home to roost. We've got to sort out issues to do with the effects that migration's had on the country, with our infrastructure keeping up with it, the wage gap, all of these. Every problem is now coming home to roost, because we've been living it too large for a while. We've been borrowing and living as if we're doing better than we are. And, the costs are racking up on this one. So how do you fix it? You don't. This is the problem. I don't think there's going to be an easy solution without getting stuck in there and being unpopular for a while. And no party wants to do that. Our system is set up to be relatively short-termist, which means, well, you got to get in and promise 4 years of kind of okayishness, and then you get voted for. And at the moment, our choices are the Labour Party, who should be representing the working class, but have just given up on that for some reason. The Tories, who every single time you can raise any issue, you just point to the last 14 years, and rightly so. They didn't do the things that they're now spending all of their time on Twitter saying, well, someone needs to look at this. Well, you should have done it when you had the flipping job. Then you've got Reform, that everyone gets excited about, which are effectively a protest party. No evidence that they know how to run things, and yet that's the only glimmer of hope. And I know what you said earlier, like the party's only been around for 5 minutes. It's not, has it? That party is effectively the Brexit party, is effectively UKIP, and they're polling roughly what they've done for ages. So we can kind of stop pretending they're some overnight success. They're a rebranding success is what's happened.
Well, that may be true, but certainly the language and the narrative is something they appear to be driving at the moment, Steve, and that maybe is the game changer.
Well, it's the only, as I say, the only glimmer of hope. What's happening is Reform are making noises, and Robert Jenrick is realising that this is playing well. So he's doing the same thing. Unfortunately, he's not got the gig, so he's not in charge of the Tories. And as I say, every time he tweets something like, some political party really needs to get to grips with whatever the issue is. And the answer is always, yeah, you should have done, shouldn't you? I mean, it's only a handful of months since Labour took over, and it's not like they've done particularly any better. They've been dropping balls left, right and centre. Yeah. I could have done a simile joke there, but I realised it wouldn't have been broadcastable. So yeah, I don't think we're in a good situation, because how do you fix these things without just having some rough time where we recalibrate? Like, we've been living for decades as if we're a more successful country than we've actually been, because we've just been borrowing and spending inefficiently. Well, that money's gone then, isn't it? If you throw billions at anything that's done inefficiently, that evaporates and you can never get it back.
And I wonder, Steve, whether it's, you know, I mentioned in that intro, that solemn intro that you correctly referred to, is it the type of politicians we have? You know, when, you know, Yvette Cooper, I touched on this yesterday, when Yvette Cooper was, it's just an example, was asked about the couple whose house was raided by the police because they'd written some bad stuff on a WhatsApp group about their school. Yeah. She kind of, I think she firstly said, well, I'm not familiar with this story, but, you know, which is nonsense. But, you know, it's, you know, we're going to wait and see what the official inquiry is. You know, you want a Home Secretary to go, this is outrageous. This is terrible. Whoever the people were involved in that should all be fired. And this couple are going to be invited to dinner with me and we're going to sort this thing out. We cannot have parents arrested because of a WhatsApp group argy-bargy. But we never hear that. What we hear is a pre-prepared answer that a SPAD has nicely crafted. Home Secretary, if you say this, that'll get you through the third question.
But, and this is not in the entire solution, the entire answer, but in part, it's our fault. Not the general populace, it's the media's fault. And I'm still pretending I'm in the media, so let's not raise that as an issue. But what we do is, if someone says something a bit passionate, but slightly out of turn, or we would be on them, it'd be front page scandal, whoosh, big banner. Someone said something that we can interpret in a way. And then we live in a system where if a politician says something that's not exact, that has some loose threads that could be pulled upon, we make them resign. We have a system where if someone does a U-turn, changes their mind, what's that thing? What's the point of having a mind if you're not willing to change it? If you're a politician, we will see you sacked for that. So we have an ecosystem where the only politicians who are allowed to continue having the job are these hermetically sealed, buttoned down, never say a word, just keep repeating the 3 bullet point things. It'll be an annoying interview, but you'll still get to keep your job. So they're the only ones left. Like Ken Clarke might have been one of the last ones, was willing to say, you know, something a bit emotional. And I think Labour have it worse as well, because they're also balancing this cohort of some Tory voters who were willing to flip to Labour, and then the opposite end of their spectrum, they have to never say anything that might offend anyone because they've got those other types, you know, the ones who take offence on behalf of, how dare you say anything not thoroughly positive about migrants? I'll go off in a huff. So I think they need to be even blander to try and keep that church together.
That's true enough. Well, you mentioned Robert Jenrick. Let's move to this story, Steve. He said that 45% of prisoners identify as Muslims. I mean, that seems an extraordinary number. Mostly through conversion in prison amid rising fears of extremism and risks to police officers. Let's hear him speaking with Mike Graham this morning.
I don't care about the welfare of dangerous criminals or terrorists. I care about the protection of prison officers, because these are brave people. They're doing a difficult job, often for not very much money, and we should be putting their safety above those of the criminals every single time. And what's happened in recent years in our prisons is governors have not got a grip, often for fear of political correctness, but also we've seen the courts intervening and dictating how governors should be running their prisons and protecting their officers, to such an extent now that there's a massive bureaucracy. If you want to put an inmate into one of these separation centres, you've got to fill in endless forms. The criminals can then take the prison to court at taxpayers' expense and question whether or not this is right for them. This is madness. You've got to enable prison governors to step up, run their prisons and have effective and robust regimes.
I mean, this is an extraordinary number, but apparently what is happening, Steve, is that, you know, a lot of prisoners think, well, the best way to get along in prison is to convert to another faith, in this case, Islam. Some argue you get better food if you do that. I'm not sure if there's any truth in that, but that's one of the reasons. And of course, we know at the weekend that Hashim Abedi, this brutal attack on Franklin Prison in County Durham, where some real violence and almost death occurred with prison staff who were stabbed, had hot liquid, I think it was hot butter, thrown over them as well. And this was seen as an example of what is going on in jail, where you've got, you know, this sort of cartel, mafia-like cartel among these guys, and apparently even hate preacher Anchem Chowdhury is suspected of influencing Abidi in this brutal attack.
Yeah, I mean, they're not being.
I mean, this is in
well.
jail. This is not outside. It's not before you get to jail. All of this. This is while you're in it.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're right. So these figures should be, I would say, taken with a pinch of salt. But let's not get cooking involved, because maybe they shouldn't be allowed near some of these things.
Indeed.
The problem is, of course, some of the people converting are doing so just to try and keep safe. There's that thing that you hear, like convert or get hurt, which kind of rhymes. Not quite. It's like 99% rhyme, isn't it? But it's going to be that rather than the nice food. It's not convert and get dessert, is it? It's about trying to stay safe when you're in there. And who knows, if we were in that situation, if you're in a place where if you pretend to convert and you know that you'll then be safer, so maybe you will. So it's not actually that there are 45% of these inmates actually believe the Islamic faith. A lot of this is just to do with safety in prisons. And look, I see what Jenrick does there. He's trying to be all tough. I don't care about the safety of inmates. Well, maybe you can do. You don't have to pretend to be Mr. Big Potatoes all the while. The point is, you want to keep everyone safe. You want to run a prison where if anyone in that prison says convert or get hurt, they can't, because you're not allowed to hurt other inmates. Stop pretending that we're America with this throw them into prison and let them get stabbed. No, we should run prisons that are actually safe for prisoners so that this can't happen. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
It's a fair point as well to finish this section on. Steve, stay with us. Steve and Alan is with us.